What's going on, everyone? This is James, Grandmaster Facts Boys, and you're here for another episode of the Facts Project. Today, very special guest, intern, of course, at DC and Marvel, and of course, editing for DC Comics for the past 10 years. But we of course, taken a switch into this because he is now the writer and curator of this particular comic behind me. You will see Showdown for Ignition Press. David Wielgosz, thank you for being here.
Hey man, thank you for having me. Thank you for putting my comic next to what appears to be an MF Doom mask, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely. So I got look, only the best. You know, like I
feel tremendously honored.
Absolutely. I got to talk about an MF Doom comic maybe around, I'm going to say 3-4 years ago. It was like a tribute comic after his death. So that's always a plus. So it's good to have it right here next to it. I'm glad you're a fan.
Oh man, Mad Villainy is regularly in the playlist.
Excellent. So good. That's a good start to this podcast for sure. That makes it better. So the big thing, of course, congratulations for the release of Showdown that just got into our hands, got into mine as well. This story, of course, revenge comics and how they're basically been curated, and for you to step out of the your editor mind frame and basically put this comic book together. What was the first image, scene, emotional idea that sparked Showdown for you?
Oh, that's a great question. For me, the first image is such a great question. Yeah, the first image for me was just two people who are going to rough each other up. Two people who know, like, hey, we're here to like fight. And I keep using the word fight because usually in a revenge story, it's like, well, one person's going to kill the other one. But I very much wanted to do a story where it's like, hey, like, I'm giving you the heads up. I'm going to mess you up. Yeah. And I'm giving you the chance to hurt me first. So, like, one of us is not walking out of here alive. So it went from being like a more simple revenge story to a revenge story. But it was always the image of a person with a baseball bat looking at another person and going, like, I'm coming for you. But emotionally, it was my brother and I are very, very close. And I'd read a lot of revenge stories where people were going after revenge because they lost their parents or lost a lover because of like something terrible. But I never read that about siblings. And for me, like, I have one brother. We were always raised to really taking care of each other, watch each other's backs. And for me, like, if I ever lost him, especially lost him for reasons that were like incredibly beyond my control but avoidable, I would be shattered. So I had an idea 12 years ago when I was in college. So I've had 12 years to think about why I felt that way and explore it and really add the texture of those feelings to Showdown.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Now, of course, you also referenced to me that I'm from Jersey. You said you went to school in Jersey.
Absolutely, man. I went to Fairleigh Dickinson University, Madison campus. Yeah, okay. I did. Yeah. Fairly ridiculous.
All right. See, I always wonder what the humble beginnings of somebody that's basically going to jump into the comic book business, where they start from. FDU, you wouldn't see that on everybody's list.
No, I went there because they had a really great creative writing program with wonderful teachers, but also they had a New Jersey transit train stop that was only like a mile and a half from campus. And that was one of their big selling points. They were like, hey, if you get internships, you can walk to the train and like go to the city. And I was like, well, that's amazing, because then I ended up going to intern at Marvel in DC. But yeah, no, also they just had a tremendous writing program, and the teachers really let me like do my comic book thing, but also like I took so many different classes that shaped me and like gave me a different perspective on things like sports writing and poetry and playwriting and screenwriting, things that like forced me to like add different tools to the tool belt and take in different influences I may not have had when I was just a teenager and I started writing. And then when I was the first year I worked in DC, I lived in Jersey City with a couple friends. So I spent like 5 years in Jersey, and I really loved it. And I just think the people from Jersey are the salt of the earth. I didn't feel that way this week when it was the Knicks versus the 76ers, but like otherwise I usually feel that way.
True. That was a painful series, by the way.
I mean, listen, I didn't want anybody to win, so it was heartbreaking for me.
I understood. Understood. And now, on a couple of podcasts talking about this particular story, you mentioned that this story had lived with you for years before its publication. Yeah. Why did you feel like now was finally like the right time to tell it?
Well, first of all, I had left DC a couple years ago as an editor, and I decided I'm going to go write full time. And I've been lucky over the last couple of years. I've gotten to write a number of short stories, and a number of single issues. I've been very proud, but the goal was always like I need to write a full length project and show people what I can do.
Mhm.
And I had a couple ideas, but Showdown was always like my number one, like my like I need to do this. I think this book shows who I am. I think this book shows my voice. I don't think there's a lot of stuff right now in mainstream comics like this. And
Mhm.
I think especially when you make your first thing, like it should be aggressively personal
Yeah.
above everything else. Like it can be a little sloppy, it can be a little messy, it can be maybe a little raw, but like it has to be you 100%. I mean, like, I know we just talked about Doom a minute ago, but like, I mean, like, think about first albums like sometimes aren't the most polished, but like there's something raw in there that makes you
Yeah.
go, I want more of that. Like whatever that is, like I want to follow that for as long as someone can stretch that out over a career.
Hmm.
And I can say it's true for directors with their movies or the first time someone makes a TV show. Like you just want to feel like there's something in there that you're like, I think a real person is talking to me. Because I think the worst thing when you take in a piece of art is you're like, I don't think I know a single thing about the person who made this.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely sticks out, especially the fact that like where you've kind of like detailed this comic. Obviously,
Hmm.
we talked about the fact that it's a revenge comic, but it's also
Hmm.
detailed in the facet of being a crime drama. And now,
Sure.
have you always envisioned it as such, or did it evolve
Yeah.
into the genre over time?
I always loved crime genre, westerns, pulpy stuff. Like when I was growing up, like obviously being a comic book fan, superheroes were always number one. But
Yeah.
when I was coming up, like all the great superhero writers were also crime writers. So the
Hmm.
books they did on the side were these great crime books, things like Criminal, Whiteout, Jinx, Torso, Scalped, 100 Bullets, like just a plethora of books. And then at the same time, like, when I went to high school, I grew up in Massachusetts. The first movie I remembered adults talking about that
Yeah.
was not like a movie for like kids was The Departed, because I grew up in Massachusetts. That's a
Yep.
huge Boston movie. And I was like, what is everybody talking about? So I saw this movie and I was like, what is this? Is there more stuff like this? And then I discovered more of Martin Scorsese movies. I discovered like more crime movies, more crime TV shows, and it just became like the genre I love the most. And then like there's all these movies in the 90s post Pulp Fiction
Of
that are
course.
like cheap, really well done crime movies, the same way that right now there's a bunch of horror movies there were in the 90s for these crime movies. And I just love the genre so much that I always have wanted to make something that felt like that. So yeah, that was definitely part of it. Was like I gotta make something that feels like these things I love.
Hmm. Well, it's funny
Yeah.
you brought up superhero books being like almost like at the top of the list. How would you
Mhm.
describe Showdown to someone who normally only reads superhero comic books?
That's a great question. I would say like this is a heightened genre comic. It is a story that examines the type of revenge that usually fuels a character like Batman, like Daredevil, but it gives that type of like unbridled anger and resentment to like a normal person in the normal world, and it makes you go like, is this all right?
Hmm.
Like, is when you read it in superhero comics, and I love superhero comics. I write superhero comics. There's a nobility to violence. There's a nobility to like going after people, but like as a guy who's like lived in the world and who's like seen violence and who's talked to people who have experienced violence, you
Hmm.
start going like, I don't know, man. I don't know if that's something I want in all of my stories. In superhero stories, like you can play violence more like ballet. And
Yeah.
also I think most good superhero stories, the first thing a superhero says before a fight starts is like, is there any other way?
Hmm.
Can we do this any other way? Like Spider-Man doesn't just have those web shooters because they look cool. He has them because it's the first line of defense.
Yeah.
If I can
Subdue.
web you up, yeah, if I can subdue you and I don't have to hit you, I would love not to hit you. Same thing with Batman. Batman's
Hmm.
got a bunch of ways to not hit somebody. Hitting somebody is the last line of defense. And I think sometimes that gets lost in less good superhero comics, but it is there in the good ones. And that's something that I wanted to explore. Is like if you took that violence from one genre to another, to a
Hmm.
more real place, are you comfortable with it still? Is it still okay to you? Because again, like I love like stuff like John Wick. I love action movies. I love kung fu movies. But again, as soon as you take those things out of a fantastical realm into the real world, Like, what's it make you feel?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And even in so where you talked about like a dance, there's always
Hmm.
this there's always this arch nemesis. There's always the
Yeah.
protagonist, the antagonist. There's always this balance of of a dance or so. You tend to do that with
Yeah.
Trish. We've seen that from a lot of superhero comics. Once you have that arch nemesis, it's it's not that I'm there to basically maim, kill you, take you to jail or anything like that, but it's almost like a battle of wits.
Yeah.
And the fact that these two they seem trapped in their grief and their guilt. Did you consciously design the story so neither character feels either fully heroic or villainous?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, one of the nice th I'm gonna say nice thing. One thing that happened, like waiting to working on this over 12 years, is like how much the world has changed in
Yeah.
terms of talking about accountability, how we deal with people who do bad things. Watching people who do bad things like not say they're sorry and then go, "Can't I just move on?" And it's like we didn't say sorry. Like that's the first thing we learn, or one of the first things we learn as kids, or like any number of things about accountability. All I think have been good for culture. On the flip side, like sometimes I also feel like we got somebody, like we properly like examined and punished them,
Mm-hmm.
and then we keep beating them down. And it's like, hey, sometimes when you beat somebody down too much, you turn them into something worse, right? Like
Yeah.
think about how many people who like, oh, it's like, oh, that guy has left the mainstream and now just goes on like shitty, gross dude podcasts
Mm-hmm.
and says shitty shit and is making other men think that they're also victims of something. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you got
Mm-hmm.
to be careful about not making a villain when you go after somebody. And that's also kind of adjacent to superhero vigilante justice, right? If you treat someone like a monster, eventually they're going to bite back.
Yeah.
And, in the first issue of Showdown, like, you can make the argument that, like, when Trish meets Harvey, he's down.
Yeah.
This dude doesn't want to do anything. And she wakes him up.
Mm-hmm.
She wakes him up and says, like, no, no, no. I want not only do I want to hit you, I want you to want to hit me to
Mm-hmm.
make it better. And it's like, is that right? It's fun for the drama, it's fun to read, but like, does that make her a good person? Does that make her intentions pure? Again,
Yeah.
these are all kind of things I wanted to examine. Because I think we've all wanted to get back at somebody at some point, right? But
Mm-hmm.
also there's been the reality of like sometimes you like whether it's like you haven't seen someone for a couple years or something happened to somebody where you meet somebody again and you're like, this is not the person I was angry at.
Yeah.
This person's gone through life and yet I still have my feelings. What do I do with those? And for Trish, she chose to try to resuscitate this monster and she succeeded.
Yeah, absolutely. You almost see that, of course, from their first interaction in the cafe, where
Hmm.
he just left the graveyard. So
Yeah.
he just literally left the cemetery where his father was basically buried, and she just wants to have that conversation. She literally hops in the passenger seat. It was like, "Are you getting in?" And he's like,
Yeah.
"Are we doing this?" You know,
Yeah.
and obviously, it didn't come out immediately until like there was like almost a repeat back to like that aggression, and she was like, "That's the Harvey I know. Let's
Yes.
work with that." Like
Yeah.
or also even to deal with it. One of the interesting thing about the premise is that Harvey almost welcomes confrontation.
Yeah.
And why is that dynamic important? Because you see that in like in the first two pages of the comic, because you see where the conflict is starting to begin, and then we go back to
Mhm.
2 days prior to this engagement. And then there's this, of course, Harvey is kind of like accepting it. Okay, if I'm a monster, I'm a monster.
No. I do think people truly get to that point and like it's also just a thing about like I think in my lifetime I don't know if you would agree but like we've gotten so much better about mental health stuff and talking
Yeah.
about like anger and like grief and rage and yet like there's still people who are like kind of behind and
Hmm.
like there's people who you just know like they weren't built for how things are changing and it's hard and
Hmm.
sometimes instead of like continuing to give them the benefit of the doubt continue to extend our hand because we're tired we just go I can't fucking do this anymore
Right.
and then you watch that person like suffer and struggle and it's like at a certain point as an adult the choices you make are your fault and you have to take responsibility for them but like there are people who are kind of made to lose there are people who are
Hmm.
kind of like made to like not function, and it takes them an extra period of their life, or having a tragic journey to go like, I had to find myself because I wasn't prepared for what the world was actually like.
Yeah.
And that's how I viewed Harvey, was like, and you learn more about an issue too, but like he had this dad who like tried to protect him from everything. And I think that is the objective of all parents, to try to make sure their children don't get hurt. But there's a type of like there's types of like pain and struggle that we all have to go through in order to become empathetic people who care
Yeah.
about other people. And Harvey was also insulated from those types of discomfort that I think are necessary for all of us to feel.
Right. Right. No,
Yeah.
no, for sure. Like, it's as far as like the central conflict, the
Hmm.
consideration in making it more ambiguous,
Hmm.
and was the emotional certainty of Trisha's mission,
Hmm.
always the key? Has it always been Trisha's mission, or is like almost like, okay, we're going to tell this story from a particular point of view? But the thing is, I'd rather, even though Trisha's right here on the cover and everything for the
Hmm.
first issue, you're seeing it through her lens. She's the one that we know received an undetermined amount of grief by what basically happened. But yet,
Yeah.
Harvey's angle by this is that he's been scorned as well. And do
Hmm.
we see more of that in the book going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the journey becomes like Harvey becoming more confident in what he is doing,
Hmm.
and Trish becoming less sure in her convictions about what she is doing.
Yeah.
Because the other thing is like we have this third character who looms over the story, which
Mm.
is her dead brother Michael,
Okay.
and she thinks that like Michael was 13 years old, Michael was perfect, Michael was someone that she always protected,
Yeah.
and the thing that she doesn't give any thought to is like, well, Michael was also a person.
Yeah.
Michael was developing into somebody. Who was he developing into? And did I know him as well as I thought I did?
Yeah.
And that's going to become something that she has to unpack over the course of her spotlight issue. So the structure of the book is the first issue, the characters meet up and they challenge each other to fight, and they have 48 hours to settle their affairs. The second issue is Harvey's first 24 hours.
Hmm.
The third issue is Trish's first 24 hours. The fourth issue is both of their last days, the last 24 hours. And the fifth issue, we go back to the fight from issue one. So
Right.
we spend equal amounts of time with them unpacking
Yeah.
what they're doing. And that was really important to me because, like, I think if we only, because there was a version of this where we didn't spend any time with Harvey. There was a lot of versions of this, but there was a version of this where it was the angry character who lost their sibling actually fighting Harvey's father, the sheriff character, for making these decisions. And I was
Yeah.
like, I wrote those versions and I liked them, but I was like, oh, this doesn't feel as interesting as it could. And then over the years, I was like, let's get the sheriff out of the way, which is hard because like this is a western and I wanted a guy in a cowboy hat, so it took a lot for me to be like, let's get the cowboy hat guy out of the story. Let's
Right.
focus on the kid. Because like again, like to me, it's like Trish has been done wrong in this situation, but Harvey has been done wrong in many ways as well. It's about exploring both these people, like navigating what's happened to them, what's become of them, and both of them going, this is the only way for me
Yeah.
to move forward. And like, how horrible is that for both of these people?
For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
And I'll even say it like this, just from a reader's perspective. There's almost
Mhm.
a fourth character looming over it, and it's the small town.
Yeah.
Like there's small town pressure.
Yeah.
Because you witnessed that at the gravesite. He's literally over there
Yeah.
mourning his dad. The second he stands up, a couple ladies behind him because everybody knows everybody in this small town.
Yeah.
Oh, is that Harvey over there? And then you see him as he goes home.
Yeah.
All the signs and everything are basically on his doorstep. So it's not like he can go anywhere to where nobody knows him. And
No,
then
he lives in hell.
yeah. And then there's also even the distinction about class because of his father being
Yeah.
this top lawman, the person that basically protect their son through everything. Now,
Yeah.
there's those three things. So you have the small town pressure, you have the class,
Yeah.
you have class, like almost like a hierarchy per
Yeah.
se in this town, and the inability to escape your past because you still live there.
Absolutely. I mean, one thing I've been interested in, and I hope I get to have this experience going to conventions later this year, next year, is a lot of the people I grew up with and I went to school with in Jersey. Obviously, we're all like people from the Northeast, right?
Yeah,
So I've gotten a lot. I've gotten people from New England, people from Pennsylvania, people from Jersey, like. They get it. Like this is a town that's not unrecognizable to them.
oh for
But
sure.
like I'm interested in talking to people from like the middle of the country in California where I live in the South to be like, is this place does this place look familiar to you too? Because like for me, it's a very Northeast
Yeah,
coded type of place, and again, like I think the more specific you get in your art, the more universal it is. But like I'm interested to like talk to somebody who is like, this place was completely foreign to me, and it was almost like I was looking into another world, you know.
for sure.
And I wonder what those conversations will be like.
Oh, I can totally see it because I even though I'm in South Jersey, so I'm in
Yeah,
like Atlantic City. Atlantic City's still a small town, and everybody
yeah,
knows each other. So it's not even the distinction of a lot of like the more metropolitan North Jersey, so
absolutely.
per se, but even just New York or
Mhm.
Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, I can see it there. So it's pretty pure as far as like looking at like small town culture, especially like
Yeah,
in the Midwest, like say you do C2E2 in Chicago and everything like that. They're probably going
hundred
to get
percent.
that even right away. But it also even grounded on the West Coast as well. It's good to ask that question. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, again, you just always wonder like, what's this feel like to other people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Now, how are you balancing empathy for characters who are making destructive choices?
Well, I mean, you have to make somebody that you can love. I think that's important. And like, as I've gotten older, I've watched a lot more movies, and I don't want to generalize, but like, there's a lot of movies I've watched recently, specifically by like female film directors,
Yeah.
and I kind of realized that like a lot of female film directors are kind of more empathetic to their characters than male movie directors are. Like
Yeah.
in a lot of the female directed movies I've watched, like every single character, even if they're on screen for like 2 seconds, like has something where like, oh, I feel that person, I understand that person.
Yep.
Specifically, I'm thinking about movies like Greta Gerwig's Lady Bird. But then, like in some male movies, there's often a couple characters where you're like, oh, I don't care about that person, or you're like, oh, like that person sucks, and like the
Yeah.
director wants me to think that person sucks, and I was like, oh, okay, and like as I get older, like I want to become a more empathetic person,
Yep.
and I was like, I'd rather try to make something more like what Greta Gerwig did with Lady Bird, where like every single character who comes on screen, you understand, even if like eventually you laugh at them or eventually they do something that's like bad. I'm like, well, I want to care, but also again, like talking about these revenge stories, like it's really boring if the other character isn't interesting. It's really boring if the
Yeah.
other character is just kind of like evil personified or whatever,
Hmm.
right? Um, you know, they say that like when you go out on a mission of revenge, dig two graves, one for you and one for the other
Of
person.
course.
And it should be because like, yeah, there's two people whose lives are gonna get ruined
Hmm.
because of this. If you don't care about the other person's life, like that's not interesting. And again, like part of why we show in the first issue all these other people reacting to Harvey is like I wanted you to see how he was treated before you found out what he did because I did want you to feel bad for him because you are like
Yeah.
shit, like this is a little bit much, right? Like these people are in a cemetery right now. And these ladies in these big hats are being mean, and this priest is being mean.
Yep.
There's one guy who's like he's telling his kid not to look at him. Like you're like, what did you do? And then once you find out, you are kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
maybe I also would have done that. Like how many times have I looked away from somebody because they were bad? And also, just to be totally honest, like, I'm 33 years old. Like, you don't go through life without meeting people who have made big mistakes, and you don't go through life having not made big mistakes yourself. Again, hopefully not to the severity of what Harvey did, but
Yeah.
like, like I've met people who have made like pretty big moral lapses in judgment. I've known people who have done things that like they deeply regret that reshape their lives, and you know you can discard those people or
Hmm.
you can let them try to improve. And again, like they have to try because again, like I said at the start of this interview, like there's people who don't try and then they just
Hmm.
wait a couple of years and they're like, I'm back, I'm headlining Madison Square Garden, don't worry about all that messed up stuff I did. I'm not going to talk about it,
Right.
and let's move on. You know what I mean? Without
Uh-huh.
saying names. But yeah, it's you have to care about all the people that you make. Like you have to be like a good parent or a good custodian, and like again, like I don't want to read about people I don't care about. I don't want to write about people I don't care about because it's
Yeah.
boring as hell.
Hmm.
You got to care about everybody, even if you're making somebody who does like a bad thing. I mean, when I was working on Batman, like I cared about the bad guys. I cared about the Riddler. I cared about Penguin. I
Yeah.
cared about Catwoman. I cared about the Joker. That guy's a monster. Like you wanted to put them in interesting stories and have them do interesting things.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. And I feel as though with Harvey, you kind of committed yourself to doing a little bit of bob and weave because he could have easily become a stereotypical washed up golden boy being
Yeah.
tied with his sports expertise. Like, how did you even avoid that?
Well, when we walked into it, I'm like, we're dressing him up like a stereotype.
Uh-huh.
Like at the end of the story, and the showdown. He's wearing a Letterman's jacket. He's a big guy.
Yeah.
He's probably gained like maybe 15 pounds since he left high school. Like we've all met this dude before, and
For
like
sure.
it's a guy in our hearts that we're like, good riddance to bad rubbish. Like
Right.
I intentionally tried to make a character like when you look at him, you're already sick of him, and then the challenge is to be like by the end, you're like, I think I still hate that guy, but I think I maybe understand
Mm-hmm.
how he got here. Because like look, like everybody has, well, that's something to do. I was going to say everybody has a story, but then like there's real life monsters in our world where you're like, no, that dude's just bad. But
Mm-hmm.
for the stories I'm telling, like, yeah, I really just wanted to kind of like, you want to like, you also like want to challenge yourself and your own opinions about like, why do you hate this type of person? Why do
Yeah.
you hate this person? What's that about? What's your own prejudice say about this type of person?
Yeah.
And like, part of making art and telling stories is like, you should be challenging yourself and your own worldview to be like, why do you feel this way? Because I think like maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I would have just been like, Trish, I would be like, yo, that guy sucks. I don't care what happens to him. Whatever happens is good. And
Yeah.
now that I'm older, I'm like, let's take a second. You're angry for a good reason. What's this guy's deal? Before we all go out and do something that we're going to regret.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Because shoot, if that was the case, the book would be one issue.
I mean, maybe the book would be 10 pages, honestly.
Exactly.
And like that's the other thing is like I wrote multiple versions of this. I wrote like versions that were 30 pages and 60 pages. And when you write the story at different lengths, you realize like, well, in order for it to go on longer, it needs certain elements.
Yeah.
Like there's a 30-page version of this story that like does not have any of Harvey's pain or backstory or really consideration for his character. And if it was drawn really well, you might be like, that's pretty fun.
Yeah.
But like I don't think you'd remember it.
Mm.
Like this 100-page version where it's like I'm exploring these characters, their environment, their parents, how they grew up, the things they thought of themselves, the things they thought of other people. All of a sudden, it's a story. It's not just one scene. Because the
Yeah.
revenge thing is one scene that we're going to get back to.
Yeah.
But one scene is not a story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like if you think about the title of the book, Showdown.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily see that to be if you think about a showdown just like visualizing it into your mind, you see two people staring at each other. And then there's the role that basically is being played, and that's silence. Silent. What role does silence play in the book? Because there's dialogue there, but the confrontation piece to where this is, of course, in collaboration with Tag Galusha, who's basically
He's
doing an
great.
amazing job on the book.
Yeah.
When you're seeing these very tense scenes, there's a shutdown in the dialogue, and there's the visualization of them two basically being the mano y mano throughout the entire book.
Yeah, 100%. So I should say this, like, my favorite thing in the world is to write dialogue. I love
Mhm.
dialogue. It's my favorite thing to write, so much so that I have to save it. Excuse me. I have to save it for the end because
Mhm.
I get really like obsessed and into it. So when I write a script, I do all of the action first. I tell the story visually first. And then
Mhm.
by the end, the characters are desperate to talk. And then I do the dialogue. But with this comic, for two reasons. One, Tad has drawn it so incredibly well, and you can read the emotions on these characters perfectly. You have no ambiguity about how any of these people feel. You know, even when they feel a confluence of things. And then there was also the matter of our letterer, Clayton Coles, excuse me, I keep saying his name wrong, Clayton Coles, who is one of the best letterers in comics. He letters a lot of Marvel and DC books.
Yep.
And when you here's the process of making the comic book. The comic gets drawn, and then you as the writer, as long as your editors are kind of following this practice, you should have
Yeah.
the opportunity to sit down with the art and sit down with your script and edit your dialogue so you can cut stuff according to what Tad drew. There's a bunch of lines of dialogue that disappeared because I was like, Tad drew this perfectly. I don't need to have them say anything.
Right.
I assure you that in the first issue alone, there was 33% more dialogue in there at one point. And because of how well Tad drew everything, it got cut. But also because Clayton is such a great letterer, and I don't want him to. I want him to go to the page the same way Tad does, where he's like, I know what I'm doing, I know where everything's going. He can just go in and do his job instead of me being like, Clayton, I don't know what to cut. How about you letter everything on the script, and then I'll go through and give you 100 notes,
Right?
Because that's unfair. So really, it's about like Tad's art being so good that I'm like, I know what to cut. It's about Clayton's time being so precious to me that I'm like, I don't want to waste his time.
Right.
So it's a twofold thing. But also, to your point, like, some of the most important parts of a story are the silence, are when two characters look at each other and you let the reader do the work. And one thing I'm really proud of with this story is like, I am letting the reader do a lot of work. And most people seem to enjoy that. Most people seem to enjoy like, hey, like this is a little bit different. Like this is a little bit more dramatic. It's a little bit more tense, and like, you know, it feels more like a play or like a TV show or something. At the same time, that's also frustrated some people. Some people have been like, I want all the information up front. And me, I'm like, the whole point of the story is to give you the information at different times.
Oh yeah.
To change how you feel.
I got a spoon feed you.
Yeah. I'm a chef, and I'm bringing out the courses in a very deliberate way.
It's a sample.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been really interesting. But yeah, I mean, also like there's a couple of pages, particularly in issue 2, that Tad did through so perfectly, and like the characters kind of started talking like the bad version of a comic book.
Yeah.
Where no spoiler, but there's gonna be a fight in the second issue, and the characters were talking in a way where they were like, "I'm gonna get you." And I never liked you, and we're gonna finally hash this out. And I was like, this feels fake. I was like, this feels fake.
Yeah.
This feels like me kind of just like doing something that's not true. And I just cut all that dialogue. And then once it was just Tad's art, it felt real.
Oh, for sure. And even outside of that, when we talk about the role of silence a little bit further, the facial acting, the body language.
Oh my God, yes.
So he's perfect with that. And did you intentionally write quieter scenes to let the art breathe a little bit more?
I think as we went along, and once I knew what Tad was capable of, yes, but also like, yes, because I think you see who somebody really is in their quiet moments. Like, you know, like me, I've been doing a lot of talking lately about Showdown, you know?
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot, but like the real me is the guy who sits on the couch before this interview and just goes, hope this goes all right. I hope I do okay.
Yeah.
I hope people like this. You know, like you learn a lot about a person by seeing like who they are when they're in the mode to be with other people. But then I think you learn even more about them. It's like, who are you when you're by yourself?
Yeah.
And we have a lot of moments like that with Trisha and Harvey, where it's like, who are you when you're alone? Especially with Harvey in the second issue, the places he goes when he's scared, the things he says to himself when he's upset, the decisions he makes when he's pushed against the wall. Like, we're going to see that. And also, you know, like we talked about earlier, superhero comics, like all superhero comics, and we have fights in all these issues, but like you learn the most about the superheroes through their conflict with another person. But at the same time, like with a great character like Spider-Man, there's these times where you just have him like, there's this one great scene in particular, and it's going around on Instagram a lot lately. It's from an issue in the early 2000s by J. Michael Straczynski and John Romita Jr., where Spider-Man just got his ass kicked. His costume is shredded, and there's like he's just sitting on top of like an electric box in New York, and he's like, "Hey, can I go home? Can I stop doing this? Can I run away? Like, is it like I'm beaten down? I don't want to be here anymore. And then he's like, no, the fight's not over. These
Mhm.
people need my help. He needs to be stopped. And you're like, well, that's Peter Parker.
Right.
And like you could learn that by just having Peter go back and like just fight, but like having that moment of doubt with him where he sits in his doubt for like 3 panels, and you're like, is he gonna finally give up? And
Right.
you've read 100 Spider-Man issues, and you're like, he's not gonna give up.
Yeah,
But
of
like
course.
the magic trick is making you go, oh my god, have I finally read the issue of Spider-Man where he's gonna give up? And
Hmm.
he's like, no, because that's not who Peter is. And again, like I have 5 issues to show you. No, I take that back. I have 4 issues to show you who Trish and Harvey are. Because by
Hmm.
the 5th issue, when you're watching them together in the fight, all you should be doing is reacting. You know
Yeah.
everything you need to know about these characters, and all you should be doing is feeling. And if I can get you to feel and feel as much as you feel about real people towards the two of them, then like me, Tad, Triona Farrell, our brilliant colorist, and Clayton the letter have done our jobs.
Yeah. Yeah. And even I would even say, because it's something we talked about earlier about the small town
Mhm.
aspect, the environmental storytelling.
Yeah.
Snowy streets based in the winter, train interiors, the graveyard. Uh,
Mhm.
how important was it, and especially to establish emotional storytelling with an emotional atmosphere added to it?
Yeah. It was everything. I mean, the train was very important to me because, like I said, I went to Fairleigh Dickinson for college, and I grew up in Massachusetts.
Hmm.
So me and my parents, we had a deal. My parents were like, "Okay,
Hmm.
we're going to drop you off at the start of the first semester. We're going to pick you up at the end of the second semester. You want to come home? You got to take the Amtrak train, man." So I took that Amtrak train from Penn Station in the city to Massachusetts 30 times, 40 times. So
Yeah.
that was just a ride that was in my bones. And I wanted to put that in the comic book because that's where Trish was coming from. But yeah, no, the environment, this part of the world. I mentioned The Departed earlier, and
Hmm.
people think Massachusetts, where I grew up, is just Boston.
Yeah.
But really, where I grew up in Western Massachusetts, like I'm in a city that used to have a lot of factories and a lot of industry and now doesn't, but it's still like a city. We live next to Springfield, Massachusetts, which is definitely a big city.
Yeah.
But then around us, there's a lot of like small towns, farming communities, college towns. Like it looks more like a Western. Where like again, if I told you like I'm from Massachusetts, I think the first thing you think of because of movies is like The Departed or Spotlight or stuff like that, where it's like, oh yeah, like those people live in a city, or they live in like the suburbs immediately connected to a city. It's like, no, I lived on the other side of the state. We would drive out and like there'd just be like farms for miles and miles,
Mm.
between these colleges, between the cities, like Springfield and Holyoke, very city like. And then we'd go out into the more farm like areas and it would be totally different. And also like just how that also painted my experience because like I grew up in this urban area, and then you'd go out into the more rural areas, and like even though we were only like 5 miles apart, the different things we thought about each other were crazy. You
Yeah.
know, the difference when you leave a city and you go to a more rural community, it's really interesting. Like just like even though you feel like you live in the same place, people treat you like it's all the same. People treat like they think the same. The same thing is true in Jersey, right? Like
Yeah.
North Jersey and South Jersey are almost two completely different states.
Two different things. Yes, absolutely.
And
Eh,
again, in that same state, like it's a bigger state than people give it credit for, but there's people who think all over the map, you
mhm.
know? And that's true of all places. And again, Western Massachusetts, where I grew up, this place that both has a city component and a rural component, I just had not seen portrayed before. And I was like, I think I owe it to myself to try to portray that. And, you know, we switched some stuff up. There's some stuff that's like very heavily inspired by real things, and then things where I was like, no, we can like make that more mythological. We can make that more
Yep.
made up, or like because Tad, the artist, Tad's like, oh, I have this thing from my life that I think we could drop in. I'm like, let's use that instead.
Mm.
But when we started, and Tad was like, what does this place look like? We found a YouTube video
Hmm.
someone had recorded where they just put a camera on the hood of their car
Oh, and just
and
drove through the
drove
neighborhood.
drove through all the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And Tad was like perfect, and he watched the whole video. And when I sent my brother the pages from the cemetery, he was like, "This feels like where we grew up."
Hmm.
This is like he was impressed. But he was also like, "Wow, like that's crazy. Like I didn't know that you could do that."
Hmm.
So I felt really good about that. And again, everything here is like made up. Like everything is like, it comes from my feelings about stuff. But of
Yeah,
course, like, hey, this is a fictional story. But, I wanted to make the environment feel like a real place that maybe people hadn't seen before.
absolutely. Now,
Yeah.
I'll even say it like this because of your work in the industry for so long has
Mhm.
working in continuity heavy superhero comics sharpened your storytelling discipline for creator owned work.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, when I graduated from Fairleigh, I was like, I had studied creative writing for 4 years. I definitely become a better writer, but I also left going like, I don't think I'm ready to be a professional writer. Like, I don't think I know enough about the world. I
Hmm.
don't think I know enough about like life, and I think I need to keep writing. Which is like, in retrospect, that's a pretty impressive thing for a 21-year-old kid to know about himself.
Yeah.
But also like Jonathan Hickman, one of the best comic writers of this generation, said something that like I never forgot, where he said, when people want to break into comics,
Hmm.
the thing they say to themselves is, I'm better than the worst thing being published. And he said, yeah, of course you should be better than the worst things being published. He was like, when you want to break in, you should think you're as good or better than the best stuff that's
Hmm.
being published. And I didn't feel that way. I feel that way this week about Showdown. I can puff out my chest and go, put me up against anything.
Yeah.
Put me up against anything and let's talk about it. But yeah, but and also just to be real, and I want to be very clear because like I have a lot of my friends and family who have gone to grad school, and I think it's good. I
Yeah.
really did not like going to school. I was always very kind of like loose in my feet. I just wanted to go out into the real world and do stuff. Like in
Hmm.
high school, I was always like making things. I was writing things. I was writing like short novels. I was making my own comics with friends. Like I just wanted to go do the things I wanted to do. And again, going to school was so important to me. And I got these internships and I used the system for good. But
Yeah.
once I was done, I had friends who were going to grad school, and I'm proud of them because they had an amazing experience and they did great things. But I was like, I don't want to go to grad school,
Hmm.
but also I want to learn more. So
Yeah.
by being an editor at DC and working with some of the best editors, comic book writers, and comic book artists in the world, I learned so much. And again, it's like being it's like, oh man, I really want to work for like I really want to work in sports, and like I want to work like who's the best it's like wanting to work in sports, and then it's like ending up working for like the Yankees or the Lakers or
Yeah.
teams I like the Red Sox and the Celtics, like these huge franchises where you're like, oh my god, like
Yeah.
I worked on Batman. I worked on one of the biggest things in the world, one something that is like so fundamentally important to millions and millions of people. So I
Hmm.
also learned that. I also learned like not only how to tell stories, but how stories are important to people, and
Yeah.
how like when people read these stories, like they have an investment and they expect things and they need
Oh,
things,
for sure.
And I learned so much, and like I did that, but also when I was living in LA when I first moved out there, I was editing comics, which was a huge part of my learning. But I also took classes, improv classes with the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater in LA because I
Okay.
love comedy. I was a huge fan. I was always a big comedy fan. Some of my biggest heroes were comedy people, people who were on SNL and other shows like that. And everybody was always like, "Oh, like take improv classes." And taking improv classes made me a better listener. It made me a better collaborator. It
Hmm.
made me learn like there's times where people are gonna like we're all gonna go in on your idea, but there's a lot of times where it's like you have to help somebody else's idea.
Hmm.
Just things that make you a more creative and well balanced person. So those two things, like in tandem, just made me a better creator, made me a better creative person. And then when I got my first opportunities to write, I had that. I had the knowledge I felt like I lacked when I just came out of college.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely. Now, what pretty much attracted you to Ignition Press for this project?
That's a great question. So I had pitched this story to a couple different companies, people I knew, people who liked me. And to be perfectly honest, they were like, hey man, we think this is a good idea, but like this maybe isn't for us, or like we don't think this should be your first book, or we think it needs another genre angle. Nothing that was mean, but
Hmm.
everybody was just like, oh, we don't know if we can make this type of comic book right now. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay. But again, like I was so hell bent, I was like, this I came up with other story ideas and stories I love and stories I think I will get to do. But it was so important for me to do this story as my first one because I was like, I think this is the thing you get to know me by. So I kept going. So then, um, Well, I'm doing a lot of writing right now. I also still edit. I
Yeah.
edit at IDW right now,
Oh,
and
I
the
just
first year,
got a chance to talk to Kenny Porter and Tyrell Cannon because
yeah,
you of course edited Operation Iron
that's right.
Coffin.
That book is sick. That book
Yes.
rules. I'm so excited about it. So yeah, like I edit for IDW on a contract freelance basis, which I really appreciate. Which also keeps my foot in one door, you know.
Yeah.
But while I was working there, Jamie S. Rich, an amazing editor and writer in his own right, was working there, and then he left to go to Ignition, and we also worked together at DC. And he just said to me like, "Hey, I'm going to call you and you need to be ready to send me ideas." And I was like, okay. Because like when I left DC, I thought the world was going to be ready for me.
Hmm.
And the first year I was on my own, nobody was calling. The emails were not getting responded to. It was a shaggy, shaggy year of my life. And I just turned 30 and I was like, did I ruin my life? You know,
Right.
leaving
Right.
this really good job behind to pursue he was living a dream.
Yeah.
So I was like going to pursue level two of a dream, you know,
Hmm.
like what a foolish thing. But then the second year I was out in the world, I got a lot more writing work and I was like, okay, I think we can do this. And then the end of the second and then going into the third year, Jamie was at Ignition. He wanted like 7 year pitches. I sent him 3 pitches.
Hmm.
He called me and he said, hey, 2 of these are in serious contention. And I thought Showdown is dead. Showdown's the one he doesn't
Shows us the
want.
one he didn't pick.
And then he was like, no, Showdown we're very interested in. I was like, oh. And he was like, yeah. He was like, look, I know you. I think you can do this. The other people at the company, by the way, who are some of the best people I've ever worked with, they just want to know what you can do. So I sent him other stuff I wrote, but he was also like, hey, man, I know Showdown's been something on your mind for a long time. Have you
Yeah.
done more writing on it? Like, have you ever, like, written more than a pitch? And I was like, oh, yeah, I've written this thing in and out like a dozen times. He's like, okay, send me the most recent version of it. And he took a look at it and it gave him a more full idea of what I was pitching.
Yeah.
And then he called me January of last year. I
Hmm.
was I was getting lunch with my friend, and my friend got to see me on the phone getting the good news the Showdown was greenlit.
Hmm.
And then like weeks later, I turned in the first issue script. So Jamie knew me. He supported my writing when I was at DC. We stayed in touch. We kept working together over the years. And then he was just true to his word that when he said like, "Hey, I'm going to read pitches from you and I'm going to take them seriously." And when I sent them in, he really did. And I love working with Ignition Press. Everyone there is incredible. I had a comic book signing last week, and so many of the people came out, which is pretty rare. Like for the publishing team to come to the signing, and
Yeah.
like a couple of them couldn't make it. And they're like, "Oh, we're so sorry, more of us couldn't be here." I was like, "I'm amazed any of you are here. Like, what a kind gesture, you know?"
Right. Right.
So
Right.
they're amazing. They're amazing people. They're publishing so many good books. Every single person who works there, dude, knows everything about all of the books, front
Hmm.
to back. And again, that's not always the case with every company either. So
Yeah.
these people know about everything they're doing. They're deeply invested in everything they're doing. And anytime me and Tad needed anything, we had it. Like for my first creator owned book, for my first experience doing this type of work,
Yeah.
I couldn't have asked for more. And I think again, that's probably also why I had to wait so many years for Showdown to happen because the right publisher wasn't there yet. Ignition was the right publisher, and they just hadn't existed for many years.
Right. Right. No,
Yeah.
for sure. And what I guess for the most part, with the book being released, what has surprised you most about the audience response so far?
Oh man, a lot of like just how much people got it.
Hmm.
Like there was a write up on Comics Beat, and I was a little nervous because Comics Beat has a great article where like here's the 5 books you need to look out for next week, and then here's everything else. And we didn't make that list of it. Oh man, they didn't like it.
Yeah.
And Comics Beat's a really respected, very smart, very cool outlet. But then they posted their reviews on Wednesday, and their write up of Showdown was like long and intricate and positive, and they said they understood everything I wanted to do and everything Tad wanted to do, and it was just like such a review where I was like, oh man, these they got it. That's incredible. And again, we got other really good reviews as well. I was really impressed, but just because I thought they were going to give us a really bad one, that's why I was even more happy that it was a
Right.
good one. But then again, like I said, we got some other ones where people just got it, and everybody we sent the book to, like they really understood it, and we had so many creators who read the book come out and like give us great quotes, like it really felt like I'm a person who like has a lot of self doubt. I'm
Hmm.
very self deprecating, having grown up in the Northeast, you know.
Yeah,
So when people are authentic, I think I have a pretty good like feeling for it. And there was just so many people who were authentically like, I really like this book and I'm going to support it.
yeah,
And that really overwhelmed me. So just all the genuine support we got this week from reviewers, from readers, from fellow creators, and from people in the business, and from comic book stores. Quite frankly,
for
I
sure.
was just like, "Whoa!" Like we did it, and like we have 4 issues to go. Like I obviously like I'm going to keep marketing and keep pushing the book, but like we're not going to do as much as we did for this issue. Where like I just spent 3 months of my life every day pushing on social media,
Right, right,
But
right.
like, hopefully, I'll still do interviews. I'll still post on my newsletter. But hopefully, we've done so much. Hopefully, the goodwill is there that like people read the next issues and they like them too. Because like, I also think the book gets better. The first issue is good. I'm super proud of it. But like,
Yeah,
I think issue two is the best thing. Is one of the best things I've ever written, and I think issue two can stand up against a lot of other stuff being published this year. And again, like as I get older, I feel good. I feel okay being confident, not arrogant, but I'm really like, yeah, go read issue two. Go read issue two, and I
yep,
trust you. Trust me that like you're gonna dig it. I really believe that in my heart.
definitely. And
Yeah.
I think you definitely got me on that one. So as far as indie publishers as a whole,
hmm
with Ignition, how important are these type of publishers right now in keeping certain comic book genres alive?
I think they're crucial. So, I mean, Ignition is literally right now. They're publishing horror books,
Yeah,
romantic comedy books, science fiction books, crime books, modern day action adventure books, sci-fi books. Like they're covering the gamut. Really, the only thing they're not doing is superheroes. But like most people are doing superheroes, so that's balancing out.
right.
And Ignition is working with established creators who are really fantastic. Names I really love and I think are great, and they're giving people like me who maybe don't have as many credits a chance. And they did a romance anthology earlier this year for Valentine's Day that was full of people who I didn't know very well, and it was incredible. So I know that they're giving support to a lot of, excuse me, creators who are even newer than me as
Mm,
well. So look, like right now, I think we're in a really good place in the business.
yeah,
I think like there's a great interest in comics again. There's comics that are selling very well, and like especially like the Absolute line of DC crushed it. The Ultimate books at Marvel crushed it.
yeah.
IDW brought back TMNT in a big bad way. Over at Skybound, those Energon books have been fantastic. Like everybody, a couple years ago, it looked like we were in trouble, and everybody got together and said, like, bring out your best stuff. And
Hmm.
they did. They brought out their best stuff with the biggest names, and it worked, and it's great. And people are back in stores. But like, when things are big and working at the top, you also have to invest down low and like give new things a chance and give new things a chance to grow. So like, hopefully, like the next time that we're in trouble, there's another generation of people who can step up to the plate and also be big and important and try new great things. Um, but yeah, so I mean, I just think they're doing really important work, and I don't think they're alone. I think there's other publishers who are actively trying and making really great books.
Yeah,
But like, I think Ignition is one of the places really putting their money where their mouth is. And again, also to give DC credit, like their Absolute line was a huge success. What do they do the next year? They bring back Vertigo.
yeah.
So like, this feels like a year where like we're pushing original comics again. And obviously, there's places like Image and Boom that also do that. So look, like there always needs to be a balance. The big books from the big companies need to work, and then like at the same time, books from the smaller companies need to take chances, but they also need to work.
For sure.
And I've been really happy with what I've done with Ignition. I've been really happy with what Ignition has done with other books, and I'm excited what other companies are doing. So like, I just hope this year and next year, like we have even more balance where it's like, hey, the big stuff is doing great and the little stuff is doing great because that's where like a healthy ecosystem comes about.
That's definitely true. Definitely.
Yeah.
Now, just some fun questions basically here.
hmm
What would you say would be the perfect soundtrack for reading this series sonically?
Oh, that's a great question. My friend Joey Esposito, who has a couple comics coming up this year,
Hmm.
Power Rangers Unlimited, written by Kenny Porter, who you just interviewed,
Yep.
and he also has a book at IDW coming out called Killer Influences.
Yeah.
He texted me and said that this book would be perfectly soundtracked by the band The Menzingers, who I love.
Hmm.
So I'm going to say The Menzingers. I'm going to say a band called Gaslight Anthem, who have one of my favorite albums of all time. They're a Jersey band. And then also, you can't be sad in a small town without Bruce. You
Hmm.
can't be sad in a small town without the boss. So a little bit of that. But it's funny because I listen to music all the time. All my books have very specific music I listen to for each one of the projects. But like, some people release
Yeah.
those playlists, but like music to me is so kind of intimate and private and like, 'cause you're listening to it, it literally goes through your body.
Hmm.
I know that's not really how music works, so just go with me.
No,
Uh
I'm with you.
and I knew you would. I'm just talking about some listener
Yeah.
being like, "Oh, that's too romantic for me."
Right.
I don't release like I'm starting to write about the music I'm listening to on my newsletter, just as extra content. But like, I don't like that Spotify is also a social media platform. I don't want you to see what I'm listening to all the time
Right.
because it's like
I'm
it's
not
like
sharing
you know,
this. I'm kind
yeah,
of
I'm not sharing
gatekeeping it.
this exactly. I'm gatekeeping this, and also like, yeah, this is a funny story. A woman who I knew in high school, when I was like very early coming out of college, like I was going through a tough time. I was listening to a lot of sad music. She texted me. She's like, "Oh, hey, I've been following your Spotify. Is everything all right?" And I was just like, "Ooh, don't love this. Don't love this." The same way I don't want you knowing like what I'm reading, what I'm watching all the time. Like,
Mhm.
not everything needs to be a live journal.
Right.
But no, for this, I think for my next couple projects, I will like let people know like, hey, these are the bands I'm listening to because like music is really important to me, and like as this hobby, comics is become my life. Like
Yeah.
my other things like listening to music, reading other types of books, watching movies and TV shows. Those hobbies have become even more important to me, and talking about them as a break from comics has become more important to me.
Yeah.
So like I'll probably be talking a lot more about that stuff in the future.
Okay. Now,
Yeah.
what's one scene that you cannot wait for readers to see?
Um, the all of issue two, but the back half of issue two, most importantly, there is a page that Tad does in the second issue that's complete. It's not silent, but it's mostly silent. And Tad updated it from the script in a way where he called me on the phone and said, "Hey, I'm going to tweak this. I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to do it like that. And then you're going to do this." And it's pretty rare that like an artist gives me direction. So I was like, "Okay, I was like, all right, let's do it. Let's do it." And the page is absolutely pivotal for Harvey and his development. But there's several pages in issue two that I cannot wait for people to see and like look like the first issues of comics get covered more than the rest of the issues, and I understand why, right?
Yeah.
Issue ones sell the most, they're the easiest to market, they're the easiest to talk about. But like, guys, I'm telling you, like, please read all five issues of Showdown. But most importantly, like, even if you were on the fence about issue one, like, read issue two. If for nothing else, for Tad Galusha, who shows that like he's an astonishingly talented comic artist and did some things that like I did not know he could do or other comic artists could do. There's some stuff that's going to really knock people out. And also in issue three, there's an interaction between two characters that made me very emotional and I'm deeply proud of. So there's stuff in two and three that I'm proud of. And we're working on four and five right now.
Yeah.
So like I don't know what the best scenes in four and five are, but two and three, I feel pretty good. I know what people are going to talk to me about.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Excellent. Now, also, what comic creators are inspiring you right now?
Well, right now, people who are making things in this moment, the Eisner Award just got announced this week, so I'm definitely gonna have some overlap with them.
Yeah.
Dennis Camp is someone who's really impressing me with his work on Ultimates, on Absolute Martian Manhunter,
Assorted
and on
Crisis
Assorted
Events.
Crisis Events. Yeah, that dude he's crushing it.
Mhm.
Chris Condon, who's been very nice to me. We both clearly like pulp stuff and like thrillers. He does that Texas Blood, the Enfield Gang Massacre. He has some great, fantastic comics coming up. One I just read recently. I'm just gonna like Google the name of it because I'm not proud. Like I just want to promote the book because Chris did a great job, and I want to make sure I get the name right. I
Mhm.
read it, and it's a fantastic book.
What is it? Of the Earth?
Um, of the Earth, yeah, of the Earth is outstanding. I think everybody should read it, and it's so fun seeing Charlie Adler, who crushed The Walking Dead for like many, many years, do a new type of book. So that's amazing. Um, Kenny Porter and Joey Esposito, who I'm lucky enough to work with, those guys influence and inspire me all the time. Um, Kelly Thompson's work on Wonder Woman blows me away. on Absolute Wonder Woman.
Excellent
That's my
book.
favorite monthly book. Yeah, and Hayden Sherman, who I got to work with a little bit at DC, brilliant artist. And the fact that they did Absolute Wonder Woman and Batman Dark Patterns, which I think is like one of the best Batman comics I've ever
Yeah,
read, like that's a person who I'm like, I'd like to kick that much ass, you know? But also, you know, it's like I really do love comics. I love comic creators. So there's a lot of people doing a lot of great stuff. People like G. Willow Wilson, Greg Rucka, Jason Aaron, Scott Snyder. You know, there's a lot of amazing, amazing work being done. Nick Dragata, and I try to be influenced by everything I read. You know, like I think one of the most important things as a creative person is like you need to be reading as much as you can, watching as much as you can,
yeah,
listening to as much as you can, so you can be influenced in ways people can't predict. You
for
know,
sure, for
yeah.
sure. Dave, this was a pleasure, man.
Oh my gosh. Like I told you, I've done a lot of interviews recently. This was such a pleasure. And like I said, like this is kind of like the end of the marketing for Showdown issue one. So like thank you for like having me on the show and like thank you for like ending like the Showdown #1 experience on such a high note for me, man. This was so much fun and like, as I have more comics and new comics come out, I would come back anytime. Seriously, this was a
Absolutely,
pleasure.
absolutely. I look anytime that I feel like you're about to drop, I'm reaching out for sure.
Please do. I would love to come back. And by the way, not only do I love the comics in the back, I love the sign. Thank you for getting my name right. Everyone who gets my name right, I think should win the lottery. So thank you so much.
Hey, look, man, it's tedious to pay attention. That's all. So, of course, for everybody here at the Facts Project, Dave Wielgosz, for Showdown issue 1 is out right now. Issue 2 FOC is probably like in a week. Correct?
Tomorrow. That's
Tomorrow.
tomorrow.
Yeah,
Yep.
so obviously, if you want to get your hands on issue 2, please do your due diligence. Of course, booking into your comic stores to get the FOC basically out of the way, so they can basically get those pre-sales in. So that's always very important. But this is definitely a storyline that you want to read. Okay, especially when it comes to revenge comics, especially for the things that you want to see firsthand, especially in creator owned fashion, and having this type of storylines are things that are pivotal in storytelling. So obviously, thank you again. I appreciate it. So for myself, James Grimm, Master Facts Boys, Dave Wielgosz, go out there and get Showdowns issue 1 and 2 if you have a chance to. And we will see you guys next time on the channel. We are out.